Last year, I only read one book the whole entire year, gang. That shit disappointed me on a personal level, you know what I mean? I wish I could get more in, but I did read a big ass fucking book, gang, in The Count of Monte Cristo, so that's like 5 books in one. All right, but it's fine, it's one book, I'm gonna count it as one book, right? 2025, we already doubled that shit, gang. Book number 2, White Nights, motherfucker.
HDTV.
By our boy, Fyodor Dostoyevsky. Ooh. So I really wanted to read this book mainly because I just knew that it dealt with the concept of like loneliness and shit, right? Having just read 1984, I felt like this was a book that would have been a good transition into kind of those themes of loneliness, because I feel like 1984 kind of touched on that as well, right? I feel like it's safe to say Winston was fucking lonely as shit, gang. If you haven't checked out that video, go check out my discussion for 1984. That's a good book, gang. So the story kind of starts out with our boy, the narrator, right? He's kind of talking about how he's lonely, right? He talks about how he just kind of goes through life through his own little, you know, day-to-day mundane type of tasks and shit, right? He interacts with a lot of people that are familiar to him, but they don't really know who he is, right? Because he's not going up to talk to them and shit like that. He just knows them off face, knows them off kind of being throughout his own routine, just running into them and shit, right? With that being said, bro actually sees a woman, you know, walking by herself, and he kind of starts following her a little bit, right? And he sees a little troublemaker type of motherfucker pull up as well. He tries to, like, you know, talk to her and shit, but our boy, the narrator, he comes and swoops in and kind of saves her out that situation, right? It's interesting to me because it's like, she may be thinking like, that motherfucker weird, but how does she know that the motherfucker that's trying to save her isn't weird either, gang? Type shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, anyway, he kind of scoops her up and they kind of have their little back and forth. And, you know, I feel like she accepts him. She's like, all right, he chill dude. It's good to go on safe with this motherfucker, right? They get to chatting, right? And they're just doing their own thing. And bro starts, you know, talking about his life, talking about himself, talks about his views, his perspectives, his kind of, where he at in life and shit. That, you know, he just starts spewing a little bit, starts going off the rails, right? As I was reading this shit, bro was just spitting for like hella pages, bro. He was going crazy with it. Now for me, I felt like I got a little lost in that whole shit. I ain't gonna lie to you, right? We a novice in this book reading game and shit, right? So I had to read that shit a few times, gang. I ain't gonna lie to you, right? But you gotta do what you gotta do, gang, right? So I'm reading this hella long ass passage. I'm kind of getting the idea that he really be in his own head at the end of the day, right? Like he's really, people try to interact with him, but he kind of trips out when that happens, right? When his bro kind of pulls up on him and he's kind of just in his own shit and he'd rather be left alone, right? Ultimately. So that whole monologue that he has with the woman he just met, Nastenka, that's her name, right? So the protagonist and Nastenka, right, they kind of meet up on a series of nights, right? I think the book's kind of broken down into like night 1, 2, 3, and 4. And, you know, he shares about his life, she shares about her life, right? She talks about how like she's kind of confined to living with her grandmother, right? Her grandmother is blind and she wants to keep Shorty Low out of trouble and shit. So she keeps her pinned. She stays pinned to her grandmother, right? And she kind of just reads books and kind of just, you know, stays in the house with her and shit, right? She's not really living and shit. That's how she feels. From here, she also mentions that, you know, they got a new tenant like living above them and everything. She low-key, you know, she catch a vibe with Brody and shit, right? He starts sending her books and shit in French and shit, right? She starts catching a wave. She reading the books and she ultimately wants him to kind of make a move, but he never really does, right? They kind of, there's talk of like taking him to opera and shit. He does that for him. And she's basically catching all the feels and shit. But bro's kind of, you know, he keeping his distance and shit, right? Then one day, you know, Shorty, she just goes up to him. She's like, yo, you fucking with me or not, gang? And he's like, oh shit, I got, you know, some situations I gotta deal with. But when I come back and, you know, you still single, I'm still single, we gonna hook up and shit, gang. It's gonna be lit. So it's been some time and bro kind of came back to the hood and everything, right? But he hasn't come to met our Shorty and everything, right? And she's telling this to the protagonist and everything. They talking it out and he kind of convinces her. He's like, yo, let's write him a note and, you know, let's see what happens from there. They write her the note, send it to bro. Bro doesn't read it. Like, it's been like 2 days. Bro doesn't read it. And Shorty Low starts getting sad. She starts crying to protagonist and shit, right? And over these series of nights, her and the protagonist, they've kind of created a strong bond, right? They throw in I love you around and shit, but she's talking on a brother level, and our bro, he's really falling in love, gang, because like I said, he a lonely type of guy, right? He just, it's probably like the first shorty he talking to, right? He's simping a little bit. He's like, I fuck with you and shit like that. I want you to be mine and shit. He on some romantic fucking James Brown type shit, right? So he really caught a vibe for Shorty Low. But Shorty Low this whole time has been talking about some other dude, so he's kind of had to swallow the feelings and shit. But now with this whole letter situation with bro not really kind of, responding to her, he's like, and she's crying in his arms and shit, right? So he's like, yo, fuck it, you know what? I love you, gang. I love you more than a brother loves a sister. I love you more. I like you so much. I love you, gang. I fucking love you. All right. So he kind of confesses all his love to her, and she's kind of tripped out. She don't really know what to do and shit, right? She's like, yo, I'm kind of grieving this other love, that I had. So, it may not be the best time for me, but I fuck with you, gang. I do love you. I want to give this a shot. Can you wait for me? We'll figure it out. And, bro's like, yeah, it is what it is. It sounds good to me, right? We can figure this out as we go. So here, I was kind of like, when it came to the story, I was like, bro, what the fuck going on? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't really like how that kind of played out. It's funny. Sometimes you read shit, because the book's old, right? And the story's old. So it seems like a story that has played out a lot throughout media, throughout different things that we've seen. It's a typical story where shorty fuck with somebody else, he kind of fuss with her, and then he kind of confesses love and shit like that, right? So I was kind of like, been here, done that, but I guess I gotta remember that this is sort of the originator of all that shit, right? So I accept it on that level. But beyond that, I don't know, it wasn't enough time for me, right? I feel like they spent like a few moments together, and I feel like when it came to the protagonist, he really seemed like he had nothing going for him, gang. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, when I talked to my sister about it, like, she read the story too, she thought it was a cute love story, but I'm over here thinking like, bro, why you not making moves in life and shit, gang? Am I fucked up for thinking like that? Is that the modern curse of man? To be thinking about success and thinking about your next move all the time and shit, gang. I don't know, I feel like just talking to my sister, that's something that I really thought about that I didn't really think about before. So after, the protagonist kind of confesses all his love to her, and she's kind of like, okay, we'll figure this out. Later on, you move on in the story, and the guy that she did like the whole time, he kind of shows himself, and they end up together, right? And then she kind of lets bro go off, and she's like, I'll always still love you as a brother and shit, be there for me and shit. I want to be able to embrace you in my life and everything, but that it's wraps on us, gang. And this is kind of like the final thought that the story leaves you with, right? My God, a whole moment of happiness, is that too little for the whole of a man's life? Deep shit, right? That's a heavy ass line. That really made me think about life and shit, man. Life as a man, and just life in general, and the concept of happiness, right? When it comes to us, I feel like, protect and provide, take care of the family, be the head of the family, lead, shit like that is so loud today, gang. Everybody be throwing that type of talk at us, all that rhetoric in our ear and shit, man. I feel like we're just getting pummeled with that idea. And with all those concepts, I feel like they sprinkle in the concept of like, we're not supposed to be happy, right? I feel like that's some shit, our boy Andrew Tate be saying and shit. I'm going through this journey on my own, right? I do feel like once I got out of the stage of childhood, right? You kind of hit 18, you start, having all these other priorities, right? Responsibilities, different missions you gotta complete. Maybe you gotta take care of people. Maybe you out in the world and really see that, people don't really give a fuck about you, gang, because you just a regular ass motherfucker, right? I feel like all these things have really made me think about like, when's the last time I really was happy, right? And it also really made me think about like, am I chasing happiness, or am I chasing these missions? You know what I mean? Is completing these missions really gonna make me happy at the end of the day? Should I even worry about being happy? Am I happy right now? I don't know, gang. You know what I mean? So it was an interesting book, bro. Like, I feel like the story was one thing, but I feel like the concepts that it really makes you think about are much deeper and almost have nothing to do with the story itself, right? Like, I feel like the story talked about Shorty Low so much and her perspective and her life and everything she was doing and her pursuit for love, right? Like, she really was fucking with this guy, and she feels heartbroken when he doesn't respond to her, and she's kind of confiding in Brody, right, our protagonist, and everything, kind of looking to him for comfort at the end of the day, right? And the whole time bro's catching feelings, right? Because I feel like that's another thing that's kind of common in, our day-to-day life, right? Like, when bro's trying to be the nice guy trope, I feel like he kind of slipped into, right? Something else it really made me think about too was the idea of the first love, gang. You know what I mean? Like the first love. I feel like my sister, you know, sometimes she talks about how, you know, the love life of her friends and shit, right? Like she'd be like, oh, yo, you know, shorty was talking to this one guy and like he seemed cool in the beginning, but then he started simping and shit. He started doing dumb shit. He had no backbone. He didn't have his own opinions and shit. And, you know, ultimately they just be dropping these guys, right? Because they be just, you know, in over their head sometimes. And to me, when I'm looking at this guy that she's describing, I think about, or like I picture a guy that has never really gotten female attention before, somebody that's not really comfortable in that environment. He don't really know what to do in those situations. He don't know how to hold it down. So for him, he's really excited, right? He's really looking forward to like being with Shorty Low. This may be the first girl he's really interested in. Maybe she like really pretty to him and he's kind of like, oh fuck, what do I do, right? But he fumbles the game because he don't know how to play the game, gang. He don't really know how to go. I feel like I can see the protagonist kind of fill those shoes as well, where he's kind of, you know, he's probably got this first female interaction that went positive in his life, and she's a sweet girl, she's giving him attention and everything, and he's really there for her, he's really down to go. But you know, she had other plans, life had other plans, you know, and things didn't work out. Then as he talks about, you know, this one moment of happiness, is that too little for, you know, a man's life? That's crazy to me, you know what I mean? Because it makes me think about how I feel like guys or men, they can kind of cling to that one moment of happiness. Like think about our first love, right? I feel like a lot of guys put a lot of weight on their first love, and to the point where you can meet somebody else and you'd still want to kind of link back up with your first love, right? I feel like it comes down to that concept of men kind of living this life of quiet desperation, you know, always wanting something more, or always clinging to the past, clinging to this old form of happiness, this old form of bliss that they experienced when they were young, and they just keep that at the core of their being for the rest of their life. And whenever they want to look back and reflect on that, they can, because that's, you know, they keep that within them. But they've never been able to kind of grapple with new forms of happiness, new forms of things that bring them joy or bliss, or really keep them going. Deep ass fucking book, gang. Like everything I just talked about, I didn't even think I was gonna talk about this shit, gang. I felt like I was gonna shit on the book a little bit, but just sitting here and like thinking about the story and everything has really got me thinking, gang. And I feel like that's why people fuck with our boy Fyodor Dostoyevsky, gang. You know what I mean? It's a reason I read this book, right? I feel like this author is I think he's known for his philosophy books and everything, right? And he really got me philosophical, gang, even on this like short story. But yeah, man, fuck, a lot to unpack with this one. Like I said, I think I didn't really like it when I first finished it, right? I feel like I was quick to kind of call the protagonist like a simp and shit, but then kind of talking to my sister about it, and then just, you know, peeling back these deeper themes and these layers to the story, I feel like there's so much there, right? I feel like it's still a poignant and very relevant story for today. So that's pretty fucking dope, right? Have you guys read this book? If you have, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you guys know any other stories by this author that you think I should read next, leave those in the comment section below as well. I feel like the next book I'm gonna read will be The Old Man and the Sea. I think that story is by Ernest Hemingway, and I don't know, I just thought of it as like a cool story where I feel like the fisherman or whatever, he's gonna be tracking this fish or some shit, right? I feel that's all I really know about the story right now, and we'll see what happens from there, gang. I hope all you guys are doing well, wishing nothing but blessings upon your motherfucking life and shit, gang. You know, I hope everybody healthy, I hope everybody doing good, I hope everybody holding the family down, you know, family number one, gang. Remember that shit. Keep striving for success. We taking everything that's ours this year, gang. On that shit, gang. With that being said, it's been your boy HDTV. Peace.